This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so today is Thursday, November 1st. So we are in a new month, and so far pre-market, I really like what I see going on. We have probably a bigger list of new things than we've had in a long time. As always, everything we're going to be talking about is for educational purposes, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice, as always. But let's talk about the first of the month. So first of the month is a great time because we get to clear all the bad that we did or any mistakes that we made. We don't want to get rid of them. We want to learn from the mistakes we made from the month before. But we are starting completely from scratch. It's a complete clean slate. So like I said, any type of mistakes that we made from last month, let's make sure that we keep it in mind, we learn from them, and we make it a point not to make those in the new month. And then everything that we did good, let's make sure that we carry that over and you know we we advance in the type of trader that we want to be. So let's talk about what's going on this morning. So ECA. Now, this is an interesting one because I'm kind of torn between it. A lot of the times we see a stock like this. I mean, it definitely took a big hit, but you can see the hit that it took was on pretty much no volume. And then we have a ton of volume being traded already. So 10 million, almost 10.6 million shares being traded already. So a few interesting things that I've seen. So right here, 875, we have 250,000 shares that we just saw show up. So obviously we're going to be watching that level very carefully. And then one thing that I did see as well, and this is one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of what I'm seeing, because we have huge prints, but it really hasn't moved. We had some huge selling that came in at 870, and it moved maybe maybe 10 cents from there, which is just not it's just not much. So as much as I'm going to be watching this, it's going to be very hard with the prints, and it's also kind of showing me right now that the range is probably not going to be what we'd like it to be. So we're going to keep an eye on it. Obviously, now I'm already at 10.7 million shares since I've started talking about it. Certainly something that needs to be on our radar, but just be careful with the fact of it's just a lot of times we see this much volume come into something, we just don't really see it trade too much. Next one looking at is NFX. All right, so NFX this morning coming in, we have a beautiful show of hand that just came in at that 23 level. And before I was even going to say that, we had prints that came in at 23 before. So there is selling into it, which is, it's completely fine. It's jumped up from a close at 2020 over to, at the 23. So you're talking about $2.80 already. But beautiful buying that we're seeing coming in at that 23 level. Just once again, keep in mind, it on average trades about 3.9 million shares, and it only moves about 80 cents, give or take, but it's certainly showing a different personality in the pre-market this morning, and just a beautiful show of hand on that 23 on the S. So we're going to be expecting a pullback before we end up seeing this thing continue up. Now, one spot to look at, especially based off the personality, is coming up in this weird spot right here, about 24.50. You can see it jumped up and it hit it, and then it kind of fell down, and it's been trickling up back towards there. So we have a technical double top. That's going to be sitting at that 24.50. Beautiful prints at 23. So we have a really good setup in this one. So wait for that pullback, look for that trigger back up, and to satisfy those S23 prints. Tiva, next one on my list. So we can see it jumped up this morning. We already have 1.3 million shares, which is absolutely beautiful. My biggest concern with this thing is that it just didn't hit 21.50. I had it on my list because it was coming up to that 21.50, and I liked the prints at about 850-ish, a little bit after 850. That was coming up, the new buying that we saw coming up to that 21.50, but it did not hit, which is definitely a little bit of a concern. So you're going to want to see a better show of hand coming into it. I was really hoping that we were going to get that show of hand before the market opened, but we can see, it's still got, it's still got really good buying. And remember, this is a real ballsy trade for somebody because 2150 we know is going to be some type of resistance point. So to take that much of a position underneath the 2150, it shows a lot. So even though it didn't hit and they're holding it back for right now, let's just make sure before we're looking into it, we do need some type of controlling prints. But like I said, I do like the new buying that we saw as it came back up. It closed at 1998, and it jumped up, a substantial amount, for a cheaper stock like this, especially a stock that only moves about 80 cents. And then the next one is NXPI. So NXPI is another one that I have a little bit of a concern on, just the way that it's trading. It's not a great trade so far. The volume's not too great either. You can see these orders are extremely thin. So I do have a little bit of a concern once the market opens that we're just not really going to see much movement coming out of it, or many prints, and then the volume's just going to be really low and something that we're not really going to be able to trade. But coming up, it does have good prints. So you can see 79.50. 50, we had some decent prints there. And then at 80, we had a couple of ask prints. Not any great show of hand within it yet, but it's definitely a mover. I mean, we can see it's moved from our 77.25 all the way up to 80 already in the pre-market, and it usually only moves about $2.26, which is not great. And the reason I say not great is because it's based off of the volume is just usually very low. So it's a little bit of a concern for me. It's towards the bottom of my list, but you know what? It's certainly going to show. It's certainly showing right now that we should expect a little bit more of a range, and we definitely do have some new buying that's been coming into it as it's been pushing towards that 80 level. So decent, but not spectacular. By far, the best show of hand that we have so far is when we come over to excuse me, not TiVo, NFX, coming to that 23 level. We could see that. I mean, just that those prints coming in there. I mean, we're once way after those pull-ups, this is probably going to be the number one thing that I'm looking at. All right, let's take a look at a few things that we had from yesterday. Let's just go over them real quick so we can make sure that we know what we're going to be expecting. Now, Twitter, remember 34.50. We have bid prints down here that I'm expecting to be satisfied at least to around that 34 area before we end up seeing this stock be able to break out above that 35. Facebook is coming down once again, but if Facebook actually has the buying up above, so I think it was 152.50 from yesterday that we're expecting. It's then it's already pulling back down from. So based off this morning, there's nothing really too great out there, but 152 is certainly something that we'll be looking at. TLRY, I'm going to tell you something. I have no idea. Once it hit my mark yesterday and breaking over that 100 level, I didn't really watch it too much because we never really got any type of good buying that came in above the 100. I know we also actually had a bid print that came in at the 100 level as it was coming back down as well. Coming into this morning, I don't see anything. I mean, they had one print at 95, which that doesn't really help us whatsoever. Actually, that was from yesterday. So this morning, I don't really see anything that's going to help us or really show anything. TR story has not changed, so it's a mix. As of right this second, remember, we had some really good buying coming up towards that 31. It never hit 31 and it came back down. I personally am expecting it to move up a little bit more above that 31 level before we end up seeing that breakdown to come back down below those prints at 29. It had some really good buying on its way up, and especially even coming closer towards that 31. So that good buy, that really good buying told us that, after this was going to be a nice move towards that downside, but I just don't think that it's ready to make that move yet. You can see right here, it had a down day yesterday, but we didn't really get that strong selling into it to show us that it was going to be a trigger and break past what the staircase pattern is. So I wouldn't be shocked to see it come up a little bit more. I do need to see what happens once the market opens, but based off what we had yesterday, I wouldn't be shocked to see it go up a little bit more before we end up getting that down movement, especially because remember, it hit that 30.50 a bunch of times on the bid. So the more times that we end up seeing it hit there, we end up seeing it come back in. Remember to tag at everyone in the chat and key plays trigger. Absolutely. AMD, I didn't really watch too much yesterday. AMD was a little bit, it's trading very consolidated, and I'm not a big fan of stocks that trade consolidated. Remember, I trade something, anything that's new that day, I'm going to be out there and that's what I'm going to be trading. So when a stock trades consolidated, the chances of being shaken out of it are just drastically increased. So I'm not a big fan, even though I know Nitesh has been calling it out left and right exactly what's going to happen, and I would suggest taking his calls. I'm just not a big fan of that. So I'm not really sure the whole story, but I'm sure Nitesh will throw that out there. All right, guys. Anything else out there that I missed? Fit, really? FIT, let's see. Looks like it's coming up on some volume. My biggest problem with this is that almost every single day, every single time Fit obviously had earnings and jumped up a little bit, but almost every time that we see it moving during the pre-market, once we once the market opens, we end up seeing it do nothing and have absolutely nothing. So yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to put it on our side list, Steve, because it's definitely moving. It fits all the criteria. I'm not a big fan based off of previous what it's done previous. But if it prints at 550, why not? I mean, I'll certainly trade it if it's going to move. I have that that negative connotation about it. Apple, let's take a look. So Apple's getting hit this morning so far, what it looks like. Let's see, do we have any good prints out there? It looks like it's getting hit, but it looks like mostly buying prints at the levels. I mean, you can see 218.70. We have nice buying that came back in. You have nice buying that came in at 220 220.50. Jesus. Have some good buying coming into there. So no, I don't see any really great prints. It looks like it's kind of taking a hit right now, but it looks like again some good covering coming back. So when it comes back up to 219, take a look and see what the prints are going to tell you, and it will tell you exactly what's going to happen coming back up to 220. Anything in OMI this morning? That's an interesting one. Let's take a look. Absolutely not. OMI, it did, definitely made, a big move down yesterday. Coming in, but this morning you could see, which is very weird because it moved $2.89 yesterday, and it on average trades 62 cents. And then this morning, after yesterday having a huge volume day, it's trading 12,000 shares, which is not a great one. Rich probably said this already. Twitter still has to go under 34.50. Yes, Connor. Absolutely. Apple reports after hours today. Yeah. So Apple's certainly going to move today. I mean, based off of that, first of all, Apple's going to move any day. So Apple's always a stock you're going to be able to trade. It's just, when I have cheaper things that are better that I can buy more shares of, that's typically what I personally do. Any thought on PYX? That's another interesting symbol. Let's see. PYX. Nope. 8,000 shares being traded this morning. Yesterday to $2. Yesterday it traded like crap, actually. $2.20 compared to $3.25 on average. No, I have nothing. It's just not doing anything to show us anything. All right, guys, let's get ready for our morning. We have a good list. We have some really good stuff out there. I told you NFX is probably going to be my number one stock that I'm going to be watching coming into the morning. Obviously, other than our Twitter and on our other stuff, but as a new stock coming in that we haven't been following, those prints at 23 are absolutely phenomenal. So make sure we focus on them. All right, guys. So let's get ready. I'll talk to everyone in the chat room and happy trading.